Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing well. I'm just thinking, I don't want to give a canned response. I'm like, how am I doing? How am I doing? And the first thing that came to mind was Christmas. I think you're staying at home for Christmas, aren't you? So we've got my mum and dad coming down here. Amelia's mum, Amelia's brother, his girlfriend. So first time we'll have hosted Christmas, really. They're here for 5 days. Yeah. So, there's been a lot of sorting things out for that and all the food, and I'm doing all the cooking and all that stuff. So, man, I think we took it on without fully realizing everything that was involved, kind of blissfully ignorant. And it's turning out to be a big task, especially thinking 5 days, right? It's like, okay, they arrive on the 23rd. What are we going to do? What are we going to eat? Where are we going to go? 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. I've had to order another bed for the other room so someone can sleep in there, and just all sorts of little things, right? So, but I am looking forward to it. It is going to be fun. And I just don't like open loops.
I know.
I fucking hate open loops. I hate open loops. So it's like one giant open loop, and I can't really close. I'm just going to close little loops one at a time, and eventually the entire loop will close. But how are you doing?
I'm also doing okay. Got some major family issues that I'm dealing with, and it's never fun when you're taking care of your adult parents, right? It's a harder situation when especially when it's a tumultuous. I don't know what the word I want to use here. Not a good situation. So I'm in the process of intervening and working with. Luckily, I have brothers, so older brothers. My brothers are 7 and 10 years older than I am, so I'm working with them. We had a long family meeting last night, so a lot of my mind and my heart and working through it as we go through. But you know what? As we said in the last podcast, just feel really blessed coming off that Alpha Reset that we just hosted in Bend, Oregon. The guys were amazing. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but just absolutely amazing seeing these men transform before your eyes and knowing that they're going back to their families. And one of the guys said, a couple of things that were said. One is they asked me why we don't call you Tim the Powerful Man Matthews on the podcast anymore. So I gave it to you these last couple. But one of the guys said, look, not only have you affected me, just so you know, but you are going to now affect my wife and my kids and the other people that I interact with. And I had no idea that this work was so powerful. And so that's the kind of stuff that gets me going, right? It's the work that we do. And it's hard to describe to anybody, right, Tim? It's just really tough to explain to somebody the level of impact that we're able to make. And absolutely blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah, it is. It's special, it really is. I've said this many times, right? There'll come a time in my life, in our life, when we'll look back on this period, and I think I'm going to look back on it with such gratitude and fondness, because we're very lucky to be able to just impact the world in this way, like work with these men, be it the men on the team, the people on the team, rather, the men in the movement. And there was a time in my life when I just wanted to really help people and create a difference in the world. And now we get to do it, which is just incredible. And I'm very grateful because, some people go a lifetime wanting to be able to help people in this way, right? And just being able to change one person's life or play a role in one person changing their life is special enough. But then getting to do it day in, day out, it's incredible, which goes to the point of holding space, right? Because in order to be able to create the kind of transformations, the alpha reset. And I say create them. We don't create them. We co-create them with the men, be it the men that are going through the individual exercises, the entire men that are there. We're all holding space for one another. And I know you've got a question that one of the guys in the community asked about holding space. That's why I'm going down that avenue. So, what was the actual question?
The question he had was, he said, I've heard a lot about holding space or about creating space for people. And although I'm learning a lot about it and understanding it more and more, I love it if you guys would dive into it in a deeper way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the best way to describe it, at least for me, is if you imagine a pinball machine. You pull the lever back, you let it go, the ball bounces all over the machine. In a relationship, in a lot of ways, as a man, you're the machine. You're the structure that provides the space for the pinball to bounce around in. The woman is often the pinball. You're the solid, reliable, constant structure, whereas she's the feminine that blows around and can be wild and free and so on. And there may be times when the pinball may bounce up against the edge of the pinball machine and it bounces off. There's a boundary there, right? And the boundary is held by the pinball machine in a very calm way, right? The pinball machine doesn't, it just is what it is, right? So it's a great way to think about holding space. Whatever you want to, replace the feminine energy with as a pinball, it could be a friend, right? Let's say a friend is going through a tough time. You go for a beer with him and he's venting, he's angry, he's frustrated, he's sad. And if you're able to be that pinball machine and hold that space for him and remain solid and constant and calm, right? Then the chances are he's going to be able to feel your presence and your strength and, get the emotions out. And that's a lot what it's like at the alpha reset, right? There's a space that gets held for each man during each exercise. There's an invitation, there's a purpose to each exercise, obviously. We know the outcome that we would like to see from the exercise, or what the exercise is designed to do. We have an idea with each man going into it, what we'd like the outcome to be for that individual. And then we just get to hold space. Holding space and creating space, creating space is kind of different in my opinion, but holding space, is a lot like that pinball machine.
It is like that. And I also think, when I think of holding space, and a lot of these men at the Alpha Reset held space for each other, so to speak, it's also being present. And that's something you hear a lot about. And it's like, how do you really be present? One of the guys at the event said, I won't say the exact words he said, but basically, holy cow, this is what being present means. I've always heard it. I've read books about it, but I've actually never experienced it, like to the point where he knew he was being so adamantly present for a period of time. And that's what holding space is. You're creating an environment, right? Even if you're just holding space, you're still creating an environment and holding the boundaries there so that the other person or persons, because you can hold space for a big group, right? Holding space for persons over a period of time that allows the container of the conversation or the container of the energy to be in there. And I think your pinball analogy is perfect. We use the lighthouse a lot to talk about be the lighthouse that weathers the storm, all the time. And it's the same idea. Like that's what holding space is being that consistent, energetic, powerful man, being in your power consistently and not going into deer mode. And that's a really important factor that a lot of guys are still working on, right? So in deer mode, right? Deer is defend. It's an acronym for defend, excuse, explain, react. And when you're in deer mode and you're trying to be the lighthouse and you go into deer, it's like a lighthouse whose light goes out. And a lighthouse whose light goes out, the light bulb burns out from time to time, is useless. it's a useless lighthouse, right? It doesn't help anybody because if a ship is coming or a storm is coming and you can't rely on that lighthouse to guide you to safe passage, to safe harbor, the lighthouse is useless. It might as well not be there. And so holding space consistently and learning that skill set is like having a backup generator in your lighthouse. So even if you start to get triggered, that light starts to flicker, the backup generator kicks in and you're able to hold space consistently to be in that power, to be in that energetic state. And it does take practice to do it, guys. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, but a part of it is the experience. You get to experience holding space and or experience somebody else doing it in a very deliberate way, so you can recognize what it feels like to have somebody else hold space for you.
Yeah, there's a lot of silence within holding space. Well, there can be. It's kind of like the hidden motives technique, right? That's an example of holding space. Not so much silence, but there's a strength. Like you said, the lighthouse is another great way to look at this, right? Especially when you imagine a lighthouse weathering a storm, and the seas smashing up onto the lighthouse, and it just remains constant, doing its thing. The cadence of the light doesn't change as it turns; it remains constant. It doesn't waver, doesn't move, remains constant, and it's that constant that in a relationship, when you're able to do this, be using the hidden motives technique, like I said, that is a great way of holding space. And you do it consistently, it creates a lot of trust. You become trustworthy. And this is when your wife, for example, starts to open up to you more because she knows, she's confident it's going to be received by you in a certain way. You're not going to go into deer mode. You're not going to react. You're not going to defend. You're not going to explain, right? Instead, you're going to listen. You're not going to try and solve either, right? Because when you try and solve, you want to save. And so you're not trying to solve. You're just there, able to let your wife do her thing, go through her process, and then be the rock. And I think something as well within holding space that I think is, there is presence for sure, and there's an awareness, right? Because by default, without you going into deer, when somebody goes into deer, it's because they're triggered as well, right? So if you're able to refrain from going into deer, that means you're not making it about you. You're not taking on, for example, your wife's problems as your own. We see that a lot. The guys take on the wife's problems as their own and they start to doubt themselves and question themselves. It's like, listen, the mood is her mood. You don't need to take on her mood. But anyway, part of holding space is that presence and awareness, because you might get triggered. Still doesn't mean you've got to go into deer mode. You have to act on the trigger, but you're able to be present enough to notice it as you're holding space. And okay, cool, something I might look into later. But you continue to be present for the other person and hold space for them without making it about yourself. Oftentimes, there can be a level of discomfort sometimes in holding space, right? Because it can be uncomfortable seeing someone you love in pain, seeing someone you love upset, and wanting to take them out of it by solving it, let's say. But that just makes it worse. It takes real strength to be able to sit with someone in their sadness or sit with someone in their pain. It takes a great deal of strength to be able to do that.
Agreed. Yeah. And it takes a great deal of strength to weather the storm when someone's attacking you, holding space, when you feel attacked by your partner, because you can still hold space even if you feel you're under fire. And this is a great way to go from deer to wolf. Wolf is, the acronym is wise, open, loving, and fierce, right? It's much better than being deer, right? And part of the wisdom of the wolf is holding that space and standing still in the storm. And that's something that's extremely important to be able to do. Now, there's three things that I can think of right away, Tim, that I do when I'm holding space. And I thought a bit about this. So I was like, how do I do it? One is I smile, right? And my version of smile, it's not like an ear to ear smile, but that helps me when I'm holding space to stay in a certain energy. It works for me. The second thing I do is I take deep breaths, deep diaphragmatic breaths. I really control my breathing and I'm very deliberate about my breath work when I'm holding space. Now, the alpha reset and events, you and I and the other coaches, we hold space for a long, long, long time. And we were doing it for over 12 hours. And, it just becomes natural at that point. But you can do this, especially when you're coming into an environment that might trigger you to hold space. The other thing I do, which I don't know if I've ever talked about, is I imagine in my mind's eye breathing into my heart and opening my heart up more, which I know sounds weird, but it works for me. Now, this is, this happened to me after, right? I developed this after the alpha reset, after I've learned to connect better with myself in a very healthy masculine way. So it's the three things: smile, take deliberate breaths, very slow inhale, slow exhale, and I breathe in through my heart. Calms me down, centers me, and from that place, I'm able to begin to hold space. Because if you're erratic, you're upset, and you're angry, and we all get angry, we all get upset at time to time. We're guys, right? We're allowed to have that anger side of our emotion, right? That side is available to us, but you can't hold space very well through that. You're reacting. You're in deer mode, right? Again, deer, defend, excuse, explain, react. Wolf, the opposite of deer, wise, open, loving, fierce. And you got to decide which attributes you want. So the wolf can hold space, the deer can't. Wolf can hold space for the deer, but the deer can't hold space at all because the deer is too busy reacting to the situation. The deer is too busy being afraid, being erratic. And that's the opposite of holding space. So if you find yourself in deer mode, any of those four, you are not able to hold space at that time. You're out of it. And you become that lighthouse whose light goes out during the storm. And now the ship doesn't know how to trust it to bring it to safe harbor. And it's just like like a partner, like if you're dealing with a woman or your wife in particular. Now, what would you think would be like if your wife, in this analogy, is this boat and there's a storm going on in your marriage and she's looking at you, you're her man to lead her to safety, the man that she married, the man she said, I do, for better or for worse, the man that she knew she could count on when, because before it was her father, now it's you to bring her into safety. And she sees that light, that lighthouse beaming, and she starts coming towards it and the light goes out because you react. You go into deer mode. How can she trust it? She can't until that lighthouse proves it, or until we talked about the alpha reset. She can feel it. She can feel that there's a backup generator so that lighthouse is never going out. And that's what these men that come home from the alpha reset experience, or their wives experience. And that's why they're able to have amazing results. They're using the activation method, the things they're learning in the brotherhood, and they're stacking on the alpha reset. And it's game over. Now, is it always going to be perfect? No. But most of the time it will be. And that's where they're getting consistent results. And it's absolutely fantastic. In fact, this gentleman that asked about this, he asked about it before he went to the alpha reset. He was there. I won't say his name, of course. He had a couple nicknames at the event, but an amazing guy. And he's just looking to do it for all the right reasons. This guy, Tim Scott, I think you might know who I'm talking about. Just such a big heart. You great exterior hiding it, as most of us guys have, but just such an amazing heart. Absolutely amazing. You can just see it as soon as you meet him. Absolutely cool. And for a guy like that with such a big heart and a powerful man, I mean, physical presence, this guy looks like an alpha male, right? An alpha male with just a gigantic heart, big teddy bear, so to speak. With that big heart, he's got an advantage over a lot of people in being able to hold space. Because when he is able to hold that space and then come from a place of masculine love, like again, wolf, wise, open, loving, and fierce, he is going to be able to impact people in a way that will be palpable, in a way that people just probably have never experienced.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if he's been through the alpha reset, the concept of holding space to him now is just, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Obviously, it's kind of trying to describe it's just a state, isn't it? It's kind of hard. I love the metaphors of the pinball machine and the lighthouse. They probably describe it the best, because it's difficult to put words on, really. Because when you're holding space, it's just you're rock solid and it's effortless. And that's what all these guys experience as they go through the alpha reset and they hold space for one another. So, yeah, it'd be interesting for him to listen to this episode, and he will know the place where he asked the question from prior to the alpha reset versus the place he's listening to the answer from now, post alpha reset. I'd be curious to speak to him and hear what he says.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a very different response. And
yeah,
this guy is set on an amazing path. I'm really excited about watching his journey as the other men as well.
Yeah.
Great question, guys. Keep your questions coming in. Tim and I love answering your guys' questions, whether it be from our free Facebook community or our private group that we have over there with the alumni that are in there. And guys, I invite you to join the other men, get in the conversation that we have going on. This is a movement of men. You've heard it before. You are the sum of the men, the 5 people you spend the most time with. Now, this is scientifically proven. If you're hanging around a bunch of fat people, you're more than likely to be fat. Same thing. If you're hanging out with a bunch of people who are runners, chances are you become a runner. All right. You're also usually your income is around the median of the income of the people you spend the most time with. The same happens in your marriage. The same happens in your up leveling, right? If you want to be around men who are stepping up, being better husbands, being better fathers, being better businessmen, then head over to our free Facebook group and get involved. Step to the line. Don't just be a voyeur. Start posting in there. Let your name be heard. Our coaches are in there. We'd love for you to be a bigger part of our community. Gentlemen, as always, in the moment of insight, take massive action. And we'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.